Herzlich willkommen and welcome to the 29th FILMFEST Hamburg. Today to the Q&A about the film Miracle by Bogdan George Apetri. Miracle was world premiering in Venice this year in the Orizzonti section. It is a very meticulously crafted crime drama from Romania, and we're very glad to show it for the first time in a German cinema at FILMFEST Hamburg. Hi Bogdan.
Hello to everybody who's going to listen to us.
Bogdan, Miracle is the second part of a trilogy, starting with Unidentified and hopefully ending with a third piece that is still in progress. So what connects those three films?
By the way, I'm very hopeful there will be a third movie because otherwise I won't have a trilogy. I'm writing it right now, actually. So what connects them? It's a strange kind of a trilogy because the stories themselves are not connected. They are self-contained. You can enjoy Unidentified without seeing Miracle, and you can enjoy the third movie, let's say, without seeing Unidentified or Miracle. The connections are much more subtle for me. It's the same town. It's the town where I live and I grew up in, northern part of Romania, which I know and love very much. And I always wanted to do a trilogy there, or at least a couple of movies there. It's the same locations and same cast of characters. But by that, I mean that some principal characters from one movie become secondary characters in the other one and vice versa. It's almost like, I always say, almost like in Balzac novels, where the stories are separate, but you recognize, hey, I just saw that main character in Unidentified and he's a secondary character in Miracle. So much more subtle, but I think will be interesting for me because I'm going with three different stories, but I'm going deep. I'm basically analyzing the same town, the same place, the same kind of universe. And something I think about as well, because as a filmmaker, you don't want to start with that. Maybe Balzac didn't start with that either. You want to start with situations, you want to start with characters, you want to start with authenticity, authentic circumstances. And then I think in a kind of an organic process, everything else comes because you don't want to do a PhD thesis about, I'm not interested in doing a movie about, the society in 2020 in Romania or anything like this. I'm interested in engaging the viewers with an interesting story, interesting characters, interesting themes. And then I think from below, like a bubbling soup, let's say, something else like steam will come out, and that will be more than what you even envision. So I think actually when I talk to people, as usual, when, not just with my movie, with every movie, they see different things that maybe I thought in a very tangential way, or maybe I didn't think at all. And that's great for a filmmaker.
Yeah, it really is. A miracle often denotes an event that is attributed to divine intervention. So if the incidents in Miracle, in your story, happen to be divine interventions, do we have then to reconsider our more positive common understanding of miracles?
Well, not necessarily, because of course miracles, I wouldn't say that miracles are divine necessarily, but I would say that they are breaking the laws of physics. And they, of course, you can see them as a divine intervention, but you can see them as some other kind of intervention. I don't want to talk too much about the miracle because, of course, it's at the end of the film, and I invite the viewers to see the film for themselves and discuss it. But to me, it's not necessarily coming from a divine place, but it's coming more from a high spiritual place. And that could be even human. Again, a miracle has no explanation. That's part of what a miracle is. It's a breaking of the physics of law, it has no explanation. So, to be honest, as a filmmaker, I did not try, it's not mathematics, not chemistry, I did not try to explain the miracle to myself even. I think it made sense in the context of the story, but there's a part that I myself cannot understand it. So, of course, spirituality and the divine aspect has a huge part in my film, but it's not at the center core. I think, on the contrary, the story is very human, it's very visceral up to some point, and it's very, very much connected to human nature, not divine nature.
So, your film has very long conversation scenes. How do you do it? What is your secret ingredient to create this tension that keeps the dialogue so vivid?
Of course, it's a complicated question to answer to. That's funny because I kept receiving this feedback in Venice as well. People loved the car scenes. People talked about the tension and So
maybe it's something Romanian as well, because
yeah. Of course,
how to do it. But what's the secret ingredient?
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret ingredient. I think it's a combination of things. And number one, clearly, it's casting, which is very important to me. I spend months and months in casting because you want to see people who are right for the part, people who can inhabit the screen, and it's a simple pleasure. I always say that a good actor sometimes, a good actor never does nothing, does something. And of course, when you have a dialogue, long dialogue scene, they do a lot. So, but I say that if you can watch somebody doing nothing, with the parenthesis that nobody does nothing, that's a great asset to have already for a film, because you want engaging actors, you want actors who are interesting to watch. So casting is very important. Number two is how you write the scenes. If the scenes are flat, to me, they are not conversations. To me, they're like scenes that go up and down in terms of tension, in terms of the subject they are breached and anything like this. So I think the writing is very important. You want to create a dynamic kind of a scene that moves you from point A to point Z at the end, going through all the letters. Another thing is, in this particular movie, of course, we can talk about the long takes in another context, but every scene is a long take. Not because I favor neorealism or André Bazin or anything like this. I mentioned it because a lot of the Romanian cinema use this kind of stylistic approach. I use it for a completely different reason, and people who will see the film will see what I mean at the end with the miracle. But if you get the audience used to a certain rhythm, if you get them conditioned to watch the unfolding of time as it absolutely flows from the first second of the film, not from minute 3, not from minute 10, but from the very first second, I think they will accept it. So they will go with the flow and they will just accept what the movie is about. So I think all those, and probably more that I failed to mention, all those things coming together, they created certain conversation scenes that, they weren't boring, they weren't flat. That's a word I don't like at all. Flat. They were modulated. There was something there. So, and also there's drama, conflict.
And how much freedom did you give to the actors for their play?
Usually I give them a lot of freedom in terms of the words they can speak, in terms of the intention of the scene, in terms of the structure of the scene, where you should go. Of course, you have to go with what is planned, not necessarily on paper, because sometimes what you do in rehearsals that morning changes what's on paper. So I wouldn't say I'm a slave to what's on paper at all, but I'm a slave to, quote unquote, slave to what the scene is about, to where it should go. But in terms of the words, if a better word comes to you, absolutely, I don't. And sometimes when I edit, when I notice that different takes are, they have different words, they have different, sometimes even different arrangements of sentences. And that's totally fine to me because, you're shooting live. You're not shooting my idea from 1 month ago when I wrote the scene in my living room. You're shooting something that is happening right there. You want it to be true.
So you always have to adapt while being on set.
That's probably the biggest, you said, the secret ingredient. I think if I would give an ingredient to a young filmmaker is to adapt, to never be disappointed, because young filmmakers are always disappointed. What they have in their head, they go out and the world sort of course, the world is the world. It doesn't listen to your ideas. But I think if you turn and you change your mentality and you think, okay, so I have an idea, it's just a starting point. Now I'm inviting the world in my movie, and I'm going to take advantage of what the world has to offer. That change in mentality, I think it's very beneficial to young filmmakers. When they realize that the world is going to offer them something, it's not going to conspire against them and their ideas, The ideas are small, the world is big, and this is the right approach.
And the most important piece of dialogue is probably that one that we don't hear, in the hospital scene. So actually, is it more important for a director to hide things than to reveal them?
Yes, and by the way, I don't know what they said either, because I told Emi and Ioana to come up with something in rehearsal, and I told them, I don't want to hear it. Something personally, something between them. And to me, it's very important because some things you cannot know as a filmmaker, as a director. You are not the god of the world. I never think in that way. I think there's some things I don't know, and I talked about Miracle that doesn't have a full explanation for me. And those things, it's between the two characters. And I think it's like a hidden iceberg. You see 10% of it, and especially in this case, You see 10% of it, and 90% is underwater. You don't see it. So I like those kind of moments where you're trying to suggest the hidden part of what's in the film. And by the way, I remember I was in, I did my post-production in Czech Republic in a very nice studio, PFX in Barandov Studios. And I realized I could hear if, what they said. And I immediately told the sound mixer, please bring it immediately down because I don't want to hear it even in post-production. You know, I don't care. So bring it, just keep it whispery. That's it. We know that she's saying something, but I don't want to know what she's saying. That's why I didn't put subtitles on it.
We can only guess. What we do hear in your film, there's a lot of popular music from the radio in your film. Could you develop a bit on that? Maybe there are pieces that from a German cultural background didn't get.
I think it's on different layers. Definitely culturally, there's something you don't realize. I think Romanians will understand. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it because it will be, you know, you put sometimes some hidden things in your film. And of course, I want to talk about the movie, but some things, like for example, the dialogue scene that we just talked about, some things you want the people to understand. Of course, foreign audiences will never understand what's the connection. They will understand the first layer, which is very important as well, which is coincidentally, they're listening to the same, exactly the same radio station, which is a local radio station in the small town. So that's fine. And I think that level alone is enough for me to gel the two chapters together because the movie is separated into halves. And I want it to not be two halves completely separated, but I want them to be sort of connected in many, many ways. So the radio is one of the many things that unites them. But of course, the kind of, I just said that it's important who sings those songs, but it's only for a Romanian audience, not for a foreign audience. Okay. And there, by the way, they're old music that everybody knows, famous during communism or famous in the 90s. So it brings also a certain level of nostalgia to the story, because people also talk about, hey, music used to be so much better a long time ago. The country used to be much better. Of course, it's not the case. It's an illusion that the past is better than the present. So I think the music in some way also contributes to that sub-theme.
Yeah. Bogdan, you are living in New York now for quite a while. So how did this stay in the US affect your filmmaking and your vision about Romania? Do you think you would have made the same film if you wouldn't have left 20 years ago?
Absolutely not. Of course, I feel very Romanian at heart and in my soul. I come home for 3 months every summer, for 3 weeks not every winter, but as many winters as I can. For example, now I was for 3 months in the summer. I'll be there again for the holidays, and then in February we're releasing Miracle in Romania, so I have to go there for 2 weeks. So even in the space of 5 months, I'll be there 3 times, for example. So I'm very connected to Romania, but of course, because I've been living here and studying here, and I'm teaching here at Columbia University as well, I see, of course, it affects you. The people you see on the street affect you. The way the sun sets affects you. The way the movies you want to watch. So, of course, without me living here, I wouldn't say I was affected by American cinema. I wouldn't say that. But my life experience is totally different being here. So, of course, my fiber, my heart, my mind is affected by that. So absolutely, I don't think I would have made the same movies, something else. And it's a crescendo kind of a thing. I wouldn't have made the same short films as a student. I wouldn't have made the same first feature. I wouldn't have made the second feature the same way. So it's a normal process, and I accept it. Bogdan, thank you so much for taking your time and talking to us. We hope to see you very soon, and wish you all the best. I just wanted to say that I hope for the next movie, if it gets selected, of course, by Hamburg, it will be a great pleasure for me to come and meet in person all the audiences in Hamburg. Thank you so much.